407 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us. But from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
This story is about two opposing factions. One is the United States Army, the other is a second-generation Confederate Army. The event about to take place happened in 1903. Lieutenant Jensen is in command of the United States forces. Lieutenant Jensen's father was found at the scene of the gold robbery in 1864, unconscious, with enough evidence to say that he was in on the robbery. Actually, the $1 million in gold was taken by a small group of Confederate soldiers led by a man called Colonel Thompson. Before the gold could be spent for the Confederate States, the war was over. Colonel Thompson decided to bury the gold en route of traveling to Mexico for guns. There it stayed buried for 39 years. On his deathbed, Colonel Thompson gave the location of the gold to the U.S. Army, for which he still had a bitter hatred. The dying man still dreamed of restoring the South to its former glory. He also gave his son the location of the gold. His son had a ruthless band of killers, and they had no intention of using the gold for helping the South. Lieutenant Jensen and his detail of men had no idea what was in store for them. According to the map, the gold was in a false grave in a canyon that could only be reached on foot. It was deep in the southern end of the High Sierras, about 200 miles from the Carson City Mint where it was taken from. The only survivor is Lieutenant Jensen. He got out with the gold, and he also cleared his father's name after spending 39 years in a prison.